Welcome back to the EKB podcast. We shortened it up.
Engaging Kingdom Business. Because Jason always has to go, Engaging Kingdom Business.
I have to enunciate to make sure that I'm saying it correctly. We have all kinds of other ministries that are happening, like Engaging Heaven and Kingdom Builders. And
yes.
Engaging Kingdom Business is like a mix of those two. So I just have to wrap my mind around it as I'm saying it. So I'm just shortening it to EKB. I'll say EKB and then you can say it the way it's supposed to be said.
Okay.
We'll just go that route.
All right.
So today we are talking about time and rest.
Yay.
And so I am not the best person to talk about rest, but I can know and understand the importance of something without being fully in it, but knowing that the Lord's leading me that way. But I want to start off by talking about time as our most valuable asset. So what do they say? Time is the one thing that everybody has the same amount of, right? We all have the same amount of time. Right. It's the one thing that we can't get back though, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, whatever. We exist out of the timeline, eternity, but we're here. Scripture says that our days are numbered and we should use make the best use of our time because the days are evil. And so there is a way to make the best use of your time. And so I don't know that I want to tie this too much to the idea of how much we should get paid for our services and that kind of thing. We talked a little bit about that in the previous episode, but just that I just want to ask a question. Have you considered the value of your time, not just in the amount of dollars, but like relationally, emotionally, like in a health kind of way, like the way that we use our time, it can really determine what we get to do, the opportunities we have, the places we go, like how we feel, the way we think, all of these different things. And so I think that turns into the rest conversation. But let me talk a little bit about why I'm super excited about this topic. So I've always been the person who has traded my time for money. It's the world's trade, right? How do you say it?
It's the world. It's the
time for money.
Yeah, world's trading floors.
Yep. So how does it go?
You trade your time for money and your money for goods and services.
Goods and services, right. And so I've always been the kind of person that is, okay, if I work more, well, then I'll make more money or whatever it is. And so I've always kind of been the one to essentially work myself ragged, like exhausted. So then I got married and time started to be a little more valuable to me because time working meant time away from my wife. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, also we have Henry, my stepson. So then we had Ilana. So now we have 2 children in the house, you know, a newborn, a little girl, whatever. So kids, and then time became a little bit more valuable to me because time at work or wherever it is meant time away from my wife and children in our home life. And so as I begin to see the value of relationships in my life, as I began to see the value of even like going to the gym, like 30 minutes at the gym is so healthy for me. Mm-hmm. And so time doing other things means time that I'm not doing the things that are good for me or the things that I really value. And so I started to weigh my time through a different lens, not just for the amount of money that I'm making, but for what it cost me to spend time doing certain things in this world. And so I do want to make that connection just a little bit financially. Like I got to the point to where I started asking myself, what is it worth for me to spend an hour, you know, driving to a church and rigging up a sound system while my family is at home having dinner without me?
Right.
What is that worth? Yeah. How much could you pay me to step away from that for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours? Right. So I had a bit of an interesting scenario the other day where my mom and my sister and my niece and nephews were all in town, and my daughter Kim was in South Africa, so Ilana went to hang out with her nana, and so they all piled up and they went to the zoo. And so it's a Monday, they're all at the zoo, it's a beautiful day out, and I'm sitting inside my office at my computer working my job. And at that point in time, my hourly rate was not worth what I was missing out on.
Yeah.
It was really heartbreaking. I was like, I would much rather be like, right now, this isn't worth it. And so I guess all I'm trying to do is maybe help people see through a different lens the value of your time, and how when you spend that time doing certain things, you're costing yourself other experiences, other relationships, other kinds of interactions and experiences. So what do you think about all that?
Well, I was actually just having a discussion yesterday with somebody about, he was saying how he knew this couple that was just, they'd been married for, I don't remember, but it was a ridiculously long amount of time, and they still were super in love, like great marriage. And he said, what is the secret to your marriage? And he said, well, every 2 or 3 months, we go for a weekend away together and get to know each other again. And we prioritize that time.
Yeah.
And I was just, because we were just talking about how Dustin and I, we go away every year on our anniversary or around our anniversary. Anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
And we have a little getaway that we just do that, the same thing. And I was thinking about how so many people say, well, I don't have the time to do that.
Yeah.
And we so prioritize that time, we make it happen. Like we're for sure doing this every year.
Yeah.
And for us, it's only once a year. We need to do more, probably.
Sure. Yeah.
But that was one of those things that it really made me think about. We all have time, but more people spend it working than they do actually investing in the things they truly care about and they're working for.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people are working for their family and for, they're like, I'm providing for my family here, but I don't get to spend time with my family. So what is the use?
Yeah.
And so I guess I would say that this also translated for me in my business. There was a long time ago, the Lord was saying to me, you need to take a Sabbath and I want you to do it on a certain day.
Right.
And I know why he said that to me, really. It's because I would try to take a Sabbath and say, oh, I'll do it this day instead. Oh, I'll do it this day instead. And then I would just skip it all the time.
Yeah.
And so he basically said, yo, Chris, Saturday's Sabbath for sure. Like that's it. And he was doing this because he knew how desperately I needed it.
Yeah.
But I just was like, how can I give that up? Because I had these certain business meetings that I was even in charge of having that was on those Saturdays.
Right. I remember.
And so I was like, okay, Lord, I don't know how you're going to make up the amount that I make, you know?
Right.
But I'll just trust you. And I did. And I thought I would make so much less. And actually I made way more. And I thought, how was this possible? But it was because the Lord was saying, you have to have this time for you to recharge and to not feel the pressures of work. Because for me, when I started doing that, I still had pressures of work all the time on me. I'm thinking like, but I really need to get this done. And then I'm like,
it was hard for you to turn off.
I don't know if I cannot do the dishes right now because I'm going to look like I'm lazy and everything. There was this inner pressure that nobody was putting on me but myself. And it's because I was a workaholic. I mean, I have been all my life. And so I work and work and work and work and work. And it's not something that is healthy. The Lord says he established the Sabbath day as his day. And so if we aren't honoring this, it talks about honoring the Sabbath. If we're not honoring that Sabbath rest, we're not honoring his day that he made for him.
Which then becomes a poor use of our time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because now we're working instead of resting. And pretty soon we get to burnout stage and we go, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. I wanted to make that correlation that our time's our most valuable asset. We don't really get it back. But what happens then is if we are only working, never resting, well, then we actually aren't at our healthiest during the time where we are working. And so productivity slips, those kinds of things. And so I realized recently that, I was burnt out. I was exhausted. I was so tired. I'm still feeling a little bit of those effects of like, I just don't want to do anything because I've been doing so much. But just this idea that like I needed to rest in order to be my best. Now I sound like a Baptist preacher. I needed to rest in order to be my best. Like my work days were very, very unproductive. But now that I have kind of integrated some healthy habits into my work days, like I know that face-to-face time with people is a healthy thing for me. I know that like going and walking at the gym is a healthy thing for me. And so I now integrate those things into my work day so that I'm more productive while I'm working rather than those things going by the wayside. And so for you're talking about Sabbath, if you just let Sabbath go by the wayside, it's going to be a terrible, you're not going to be as productive because you're going to be so exhausted. And so for me, there's some additional things as well. But yeah, I'm sure we could do an entire episode on rest and like what that really looks like and how to break through that mentality of feeling like you always need to be doing. Like there's so much to be said there. But what do we want I guess the one takeaway for this episode to be?
I guess there's one thing that it's not just a takeaway. I'm just going to say this. I think there's one thing that we need to remember is that resting in the Lord is it's the only thing he asks us to strive to do.
Right. Strive to enter the rest.
Right.
Hebrews.
And if we can focus on resting in him and not just taking time off, because we've talked about taking time off.
Yeah.
Right. But resting in him, that's how you really can start functioning in a way that is heavenly. Because we're talking about engaging kingdom business. His kingdom has a culture of honor. We talked about that the last time. But it's also this area of doing everything from your seat of rest. So when you're working, you're actually doing it from resting in him.
Right.
And that is a totally different way of thinking. It's not just about taking good time off, but it's about entering his rest and working from that place of rest.
That's so good.
And that's how we can have kingdom come.
Right. So when you're building a kingdom business, the culture of heaven should be the culture of your business.
Absolutely.
Because people talk a lot about culture within their business. And like, we want a culture of this, we want a culture of that. A lot of these things will be good, but if it's from heaven to earth. So if you're bringing the culture of heaven into your business, it's going to mimic all of those things, which is interesting because we talked about culture of honor. This time we're talking about maybe now even a culture of rest. Ask yourself, how are we going to create or manifest or whatever, bring a culture of rest into our company? And where is that coming from? It's not just because I think it's a good idea that people take a vacation once a year, whatever it is.
Right.
It's because this is how the Father has established it for us. And so what he has established and desired for us, we should establish and desire for ourselves and for others if we have employees or people we're doing business with, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And to be clear, a culture of rest doesn't mean a culture of laziness. Because it's easy to slip into that on the other end of the spectrum.
Right.
But there are businesses that they are constantly upping the quota to try to get more productivity. And it's like the opposite. It's striving. And people get so stressed out and they don't have a long time that they work there. Every time this happens in those businesses. Yeah. And if you have the opposite where you say, hey, I see that you're a little like overstressed right now. Why don't you just take some time, just go for an hour and focus, just get your cool back and just rest a little bit and then come back. Yeah. If you would put that into your business, you would be paying them for rest and it would actually be more productive for you.
Yes. Right.
It would actually make things go way better, not way worse.
Wow. It feels so opposite, right?
Right.
It's like, hey, we're gonna give you 1 hour, not even a lunch break, but like 1 hour of time to just gather yourself per day, and so we're only getting 7 hours out of you, but you might get more productivity in 7 hours than you would in 8 hours if you expect them to just sit at a desk all day or do whatever they do. That's so backwards, and I love it. Real quick story recently about Tove Media. So we have Tove Media, we do podcast solutions and live stream Wichita, our divisions there. And so recently I messaged the guys on our Signal group and I was like, hey, not a lot of movement with Tove lately. What's up? And we started talking about a bunch of stuff. And Darren, one of my business partners and friends, he goes, bro, I don't want to strive in this. Like, he's like, I already have a job. You know, I already work for money. Like, I already do these things. This business needs to be built out of relationship and rest and all this stuff. And I was just like, well, how are we going to rest if we don't like do anything? You know, that kind of stuff. And so I had to wrestle with that there for a second. Like, okay, I told him this today. I said, we're going to have to get work done in order to get hired to do work. Like, there are some things that need to happen. You know, we want people to hire us for these services and so, you know, it's like, I have this whole strategy. Let's write these blogs and do these videos and do all these things. We have all the strategy, but really sometimes that comes from, well, these are the things that I know that I should do in order to try and get business, but are we doing it from a place of rest or trust, or are we allowing the Lord to lead us in those things? And that's the biggest thing, is like, okay, Lord, you show us what you want us to do. And so I just had a conversation with him recently and saying, okay, let me go back to the things that I know the Lord has led me to do. And when I think about doing those things, it doesn't feel like striving to me. Like, it actually feels like fun. And I wanted to just throw out the phrase culture of fun. Like, I would love to talk about that in one of our episodes. Just, that's cool. I mean, because you've had multiple experiences in the heavenlies with people dancing and playing and running and jumping and, you know, kids playing in the tree of life and all this kind of stuff. It's just super cool and talk about that. But I was like, these things sound fun to me. And the reason that they sound fun is because I know that these are the things the Lord has called me to do, made me to do. And so if we do those things for the business, I'm not going to feel like I'm striving to get things done. I'm going to be doing things that I know I'm supposed to do, and I'm going to have a good time doing them. And that's just a completely different mindset as well. Yeah. And so that is, even being in a place of rest doesn't mean not getting things done either. But it also means that there's not a striving or a depending on self to try and make these things happen.
That's good.
Right? You got anything else?
Nope.
That's it. And that's all I've got to say about that.
Yeah.
All right. Head over to engagingkingdom.biz and check out all the things we do. We've got our course. We haven't talked about our course for a couple episodes. We have the Engaging Kingdom Business course.
It's the best. If you guys haven't checked it out, you need to go check that out on the website, because this has already been transformational for people who've taken the course and invested in their own growth. Yeah. And doing this is super important. We also have groups that are starting up that are about really not only just networking with one another, but growing more in this and having support for some of this stuff. Yeah. Because sometimes you're like, well, that sounds good and everything, but I'm not hearing the Lord on this, or I don't understand this concept. And it's good to have that sort of thing. So anyway, go check that stuff out.
Let's just give a little bit of vision behind the group. So one of our mandates in our business is to help continue to educate people, but also build community and then help connect people. And so that's all part of our relationship mandate that we have. Yeah. And so the group is part of that. And so we want to have these groups that meet twice a month. And we're going to cover some of the, go more in depth concerning some of the topics from the course. And, but we also want to foster community and build our online directory so people can connect with other people who are doing kingdom business as well. But yeah, that's our hope. We want to help people move further and deeper into these ideas and these concepts, and not just hear about them or talk about them, but actually make progress in doing that. And I'm just kind of looking forward. I'm excited to hear stories about how people are making mindset shifts and seeing new things worked out in their businesses because of the conversations that we're having about these kingdom culture ideas. So cool. Awesome. engagingkingdom.biz. Check it out, and we will see you next time.